We all remember where we were when Joe Versus the Volcano.
I was watching Candy get shot on 9/11.
I don't want to see an ordinary film. I want to see something extraordinary.
Your sacrifice completes my sanctuary of 1,000 testicles.
Do you ever feel as if your mind had started to erode?
Welcome, let's rock indeed. Welcome to 1000 Wives of Weird. I'm Brad Heffner, and with me as always is
Billy Martel.
And this is a different episode in a lot of ways. We are not in the usual studio, and the only other episode that we were not in the usual studio for was so bad we did not we did not put it out.
Yeah.
We're also wearing masks, so if we
Yes.
sound a little bit muffled and if the echo effect is
Yeah.
giving
We're
us a
on
nice-
stage in front of 1,000 people.
Yeah, this is our first live show. We're opening up for Smash Mouth.
That's right. And the crowd could not be more disappointed.
I mean, it's hard to be more disappointing than Smash Mouth. But,
I saw them when they were at like coming. I took Cooper and Max and my cousin Caitlin.
I thought this was going to be back when you were like
No,
in college. No, this was
this was like 2 years ago.
I remember when they came, I
Yeah.
almost went and I was like, no.
I was like, why not? You know,
I mean,
Sure,
seriously,
yeah.
what else am I doing?
I mean, when,
it was
when
like
the,
a random
hits start
weekday.
coming and they don't stop coming.
That's it.
So you
Exactly.
guys,
Yeah, they waited to. That was
Yeah.
the last song.
That was
Because
that was
there's
Of
nothing,
course.
nothing can follow
they had
that.
to keep, I thought they would just do that like for every song. They would just do different remixes.
I think that's really all anybody wanted.
Yeah.
to
Right,
tell you the
yeah.
truth.
Well, Walking on the Sun's a decent song
It
too.
was. It was.
Okay.
But we also have our first guest.
Yes.
I've known her for 20 years. She's a wife, a mother, and really, what more can a woman accomplish that needs to be said? She's a teacher. She's a towering figure in the community. A colossus astride our town. My dear friend, Spring Moore, welcome to the show, Spring. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And you've brought a movie that you've loved for a long time.
Yes.
And got me to watch way, way back when I was your student, called Joe Versus the Volcano.
Yes.
And this is what this show is about. It's about the weird things that not a lot of people really remember or dig. And we want to talk to the people who love those things.
Absolutely.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about, do you remember when you first saw Joe Versus the Volcano?
I know that, well, it came out in, 1990, right?
Yes.
So I was 11 in 1990.
Nice.
And I remember waiting for it to come onto HBO. HBO used to put out those little HBO guides.
Yeah, I remember those.
Okay, you do? So I'm old. And I can still remember the pictures they would always feature on the back of the HBO guide. And I can remember the picture for Joe Versus the Volcano and waiting for that movie to come because Tom Hanks. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
I loved Splash and I loved
Sure.
The Money Pit. And, these
Right,
were movies
yeah.
that when I was really young, were really funny
Yeah.
to me and I enjoyed them. So I couldn't wait for that movie to come out. And I can definitely remember watching it in my living room at home, but I can also remember watching it with my aunt at her house. And I can remember her laughing so hard at this movie at parts that I guess at the time I didn't realize how funny they were.
Yeah,
And
sure, yeah.
But yes, I can remember loving it even back then and loving that Meg Ryan played 3 roles.
Played 3 roles, yeah.
I don't think, up to that point, I hadn't seen a movie where that happened, and really, I haven't seen too many since.
Well, Eddie Murphy starred he stole that, much like Kanye West stealing the microphone from Meg Ryan. Eddie Murphy
Meg Ryan.
from
Taylor Swift, I think you mean.
look,
well,
skinny white blonde women
be
all
fair,
look the same.
To be fair, Taylor Swift is the best role Meg Ryan ever played.
There
Yes.
you go.
She is so committed. That's where she's
committed.
been. That's why you don't see her in movies.
She's kind of like
anymore.
when Joaquin Phoenix took that year off from acting to live a role
Yes.
to make a documentary about. We're not sure when Meg Ryan will come back from this one.
But what are some of the things you love about Joe Versus the Volcano?
I love, it's a fairy tale sort of quality to it, right? That
Yeah.
starts
Yeah.
once upon a time and ends with, happily
ever after.
happily ever after.
Spoilers.
Right? Exactly. You don't need to watch it now.
Yeah. They live. Oh.
I guess at that point in my life, it was the perfect blend of a fairy tale,
Yeah.
so it had that childlike quality about it, but it was also sort of funnily bizarre.
Yes.
and just at the age where like the romance element of it appealed to me.
Sure.
But it was just, even then, so kind of visually appealing. And you know, even more so now, it's so pretty. But I loved how there was such simplicity, but such depth in so many of the lines. Like, I can remember the first time I watched the part at the beginning with the daisy.
Oh
You know, and I immediately, that was it.
It's it's a great moment.
Yeah.
All right, now, despite the little bit of spoilers that they live and are happy at the end, and apparently they live forever because ever after.
Ever
after.
Or maybe this movie is just confirming an afterlife for us.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Spring, did this movie reaffirm your personal relationship with Jesus Christ?
No.
But Billy and I are going to say whether we recommend this movie as well.
Sure.
Before we get into the plot. Billy, would you recommend Joe Versus the Volcano?
Absolutely. I actually was lazy again, and I waited until just this morning to watch it. But that's kind of good because I was really depressed this past week, and this movie cheered me right up. It's so full of light. Like you were talking about, the imagery is so well chosen. It's so intentionally done. The writing, the monologues that Tom Hanks has in the film, I've never seen Meg Ryan play so many different kinds of things. I thought she could only do one thing.
Yeah.
Because that's all that she's ever asked to do.
Meg Ryan playing Meg Ryan.
Meg Ryan. And in the end of the movie, we do finally get that. But before that, she plays some legit character parts, and I didn't recognize her at first.
Yeah.
And no, there's a lot to love about this movie, and I talk repeatedly on this podcast about how much I don't understand Hollywood's obsession with maintaining realism, that they insist on trying to reflect the real world and everything. Mm-hmm. And this movie throws that away immediately from the first shot. And the minute that first shot came up, and we'll talk about it, I was immediately in love with the movie, and it had a few moments that were so sincere that my little black heart was like, come on. But like, for most of it, I was able to push that aside, my inner cynicism, and just enjoy the fairy tale.
I would also recommend it.
Yeah.
I think of the three of us, I might have liked it the least. I still enjoyed it a lot.
It's okay.
I enjoy everything that you guys have mentioned.
Yeah.
And because of the fairy tale quality, this is most likely a choice. There's not a lot of subtlety in this movie.
No, not at all.
Which not every movie needs to be subtle. And it works well in this for the most part. Other thing is, a lot of the visually interesting stuff we lose for a good portion in the middle of the movie. And for that, I was sort of like, this movie started so...
When they're on the boat?
More when he's like doing his fashion montage. And going to dinner.
It just temporarily becomes Pretty Woman for a little bit.
Yes. It absolutely does. And I was like, these are all... The rest of the movie has such wonderful set design, production design. Yeah. And that was so mundane that it was like, give me more of what I saw at the beginning.
Right,
give me more of this style that this movie wants to do.
The beginning of the movie almost feels like a deleted scene from Brazil.
We were talking, Spring and I were talking about Brazil outside.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then I realized at the end of the movie, they blew all their budget on the last 20 minutes or so. Right. So that's sort of, then I understand sort of the more mundane part. But yeah, this is a great, cheerful, very unique movie. You're not going to see another romantic comedy like this.
No, absolutely not.
All right, now we'll get into talking about the film. This, like we said, this came out in 1990. It's written and directed by John Patrick Shanley, who is primarily a playwright who wrote the play Doubt.
Yeah, and that's one of the only plays is the only play I've ever directed.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite plays. He also directed the movie version.
That's right.
Yeah. And he's also the writer of a very strange animated movie that I really want to talk about on the show called We're Back, a Dinosaur Story.
Yes. He's had a bit of a strange career.
That movie is so weird. It's like it's like so much palpably weirder than this movie.
Yeah, bring it on.
Sure.
And Doubt is so different from this.
So
are you familiar with Doubt?
No, I wrote it down so that I can become familiar.
Doubt is a play about
the
a
Catholic
potential
Church.
sexual abuse in a Catholic school in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I have heard of this.
I think Meryl Streep was in the
Meryl
movie.
Streep played the nun who's investigating it, and
Okay, yep.
the father who is being investigated is played by Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I do recall it.
Spring, let
Yeah.
me ask you a question. Do you think people would warm up to the Catholic Church more if instead of calling priests father, they called them daddy?
No.
Billy, same question.
I'm gonna go with Spring's answer there. I'm gonna say no.
Then we're all in agreement.
We're all in agreement. Daddy, not the best choice for the Catholic Church in terms of rebranding.
But he also wrote the screenplays for Moonstruck.
Yes.
I was surprised by that.
I was surprised as well. Not as surprised I was that he wrote Alive, the movie about the soccer team in the Andes that cannibalize each other.
Yeah.
Oh.
Another one of his.
Ah.
And Congo.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
Yeah.
Congo. Is,
Congo.
Yeah,
the
no,
ape
I know
movie.
what Congo is. For some reason, I attributed that in my head to Michael Crichton.
Well, he wrote the book. I guess he did the adaptation.
Oh, that's right. He did do the
Okay,
book.
okay.
Yeah.
I can only assume he was so moved by this monkey story. It's like,
As we all are.
yeah, no,
Right.
I keep a framed copy of Congo, which defeats its purpose, but just in case there's an apocalypse and needs to be saved.
Congo is one of those movies that tragically underuses Bruce Campbell. Like it's that and Dusk Till Dawn 2.
Oh, is he in that?
Yeah, he's in an elevator at the very beginning of the movie, and he gets killed off immediately, just like in Congo.
Gotcha.
So,
One of those
yeah,
guys.
He's in a jungle elevator in Congo and gets killed off.
exactly by vampire monkeys.
Oh man,
Yeah,
this is from Amblin Entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
which gave us a lot of great weird stuff in the '90s, like Animaniacs.
I was watching an interview with John Patrick Shanley after watching the movie, and he said that while working with Steven Spielberg to make this film, because Steven Spielberg ran Amblin Entertainment,
Yeah, he's a executive producer on this.
he would send every time they would talk about movies, John Patrick Shanley would inevitably end up saying, "I haven't seen that," whatever Steven Spielberg was talking about. So Steven Spielberg just kept sending movies to his hotel room the entire time they were making it. So he kept watching movies, and that's apparently how he learned to direct films, because this was his first film directing job. Was about watching the movies that Steven Spielberg sent him.
I mean, that's always the way you start, is
Yeah.
by just watching movies.
Just watch movies.
Over the opening titles, we hear the sound of an orchestra tuning up, and I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I love
It's wonderful.
any bit. I always love when they acknowledge the artifice of the medium.
Yeah, that's always fantastic. I also realized I had a weird moment going into this movie where I realized this is the first Tom Hanks Meg Ryan film I've ever seen.
I thought I'd seen like a million Meg Ryan movies. This is the only Meg Ryan movie I've seen.
Well, I've seen
Ever?
Yes.
I've seen
How's that possible?
I don't know.
I've seen When Harry Met Sally, which is a great movie, by the way.
Okay.
How have you not seen When Harry Met Sally?
I don't know.
I love that movie.
Well, you know why he
Okay,
hasn't seen it? It's because Billy Crystal's in it, and he has a
Right.
thing against Billy Crystal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I assume Billy Crystal's in blackface for most of it.
Oh my god!
That's not offensive. The man does blackface a lot.
Okay, all right.
he does do blackface a lot. But yeah, but I've never seen a Tom Hanks Meg Ryan together movie. Like they've made all of these rom-coms.
Sleepless in Seattle.
very
You've got
famous.
Mail.
I actually own Sleepless in Seattle. I've never seen it, but
It doesn't touch
I
Joe
have a feeling it's not
This is
anything
my-
like
this.
this.
Is my, no, the other two are fine for what
I
they
imagine
are.
that they trade off in that one. Tom Hanks plays 3 different parts.
He plays identical triplets. And none of them can sleep.
But only one of them's in Seattle.
Yes.
And that makes him the right one for Meg.
We're told at the beginning that once upon a time there was a guy named Joe who had a very lousy job.
Yes.
And Joe Banks is played by Tom Hanks.
Yes.
If you don't know who Tom Hanks is, he's known for Bosom Buddies and
Mazes
Volunteers, Mazes and Monsters.
Yep. Absolutely. Very under-recognized actor.
Yes.
Very up and coming. We really hope that he makes it one day. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
COVID survivor Tom Hanks, R.I.P. We see as I forget who does the cover of Merle Travis's 16 Tons, but this great song about mining coal plays as we see Joe and his coworkers trudge into their workplace, which is this nasty, concrete, almost dystopian structure.
It's an office building, but the production design makes it look like a bunch of workers in the 1920s going into a factory.
It's a very, like, it's almost like an 80s music video, like,
Exactly.
vibe when they're going in there, for
Yeah.
sure. Because there's people, what are they welding? Like, what are they, it's the home of the rectal probe, and
It's
they have
petroleum
petroleum jelly, but they're welding, like, they keep showing the guy welding in the background. I don't understand what he's welding.
No, it's
I
like
was
the
very
building
confused.
looks like a giant face. There, you could make allusions to Metropolis there.
Yeah.
Did you notice the path, though? Did you
It was very zigzaggy.
Did
It was,
you notice that that's a repetition throughout the movie?
Yes, I did.
it's so
I did not notice that.
It's super cool.
We
Oh,
see
okay.
it again at the end.
You see it.
We see it multiple
Yeah.
times, but I noticed it at the end as the tribespeople are going up the path to the volcano.
Oh, is it another zigzag?
It's another
Yeah,
zigzag.
But it's
That-
also in his wall, like when Lloyd Bridges comes in and bangs the wall.
Oh.
Like there's a.
Oh my
you
goodness.
The wall is. I just noticed it last night for the first time. You can see the light coming through it because there's such a, there's such a deeper meaning that they have with the light throughout the movie,
Yeah.
like taking the lamp away, taking the
So
light
you
away.
could say
But
that
you could,
the little lightning bolt, which of course mimics the fascist symbol of the SS, is in every place where he has been trapped by the horrors of capitalism,
well,
including the trap that Lloyd Bridges has put him in to send him up to the volcano against his will.
I can't remember where else. It's somewhere else too. I have it written down somewhere. I actually, at the end of the movie, I just noticed it last night. At the end of the movie, he says something about, it's a long time coming on a crooked road.
Oh, that's right. He does say that. Oh my goodness. It means something.
Spring is an English teacher, so she is going to be right there in it with the themes and the.
Oh man, I miss taking English classes.
That was the first time. Well, the first time I saw it, like when I was really looking at it last night, I was like, what's this supposed to mean? Is it like supposed to look
Yeah.
like an intestine since it's like a rectal probe? But then I saw it in the apartment, and then
Yeah.
it's again somewhere else, and it'll come up when we're going through.
Sure.
But then it's also on the volcano, and then when he said it's been a long time coming on a crooked road, I was like, oh, there it is. Okay.
A Wizard of Oz connection, perhaps.
But amidst all this, and right away, the movie is telling us this is going to be a stylized affair.
Very stylized.
Where it's right from the start.
Yeah.
It's tipping its hand about what it is.
Very much so. There's a great shot, which is, I think, it's one of the things I think you were thinking about when you said it's not very subtle.
Yes.
Where it literally, it's a shot of Tom Hanks walking forward, it pans down to a flower sticking out of the ground.
I
It's
love
this beautiful
that.
flower.
Yes.
And as Tom Hanks doesn't step on the flower, but as it's a match, it's a shot match down to the flower. The flower is Tom Hanks, and as he walks into the building, someone steps on the flower. He's going into a place that crushes him. And I understand why you might have not liked that for not being subtle.
Yeah.
My reaction to that immediately was that it was I wrote down that is a moment as subtle as the opening of Blue Velvet, which
Yes.
I also love. So I did not have a problem with it not being subtle because I was like, yes, and then the bugs are down there.
Throughout this opening, Joe suffers various indignities and small disasters. Joe's office space is poorly lit. The lights are flickering like it's a David Lynch film.
Yes.
There's a lot of Lynch vibes, actually, with...
Especially in this opening.
Yes.
My favorite Lynch vibe I got was when the boss in the background, as he comes in, is having a cycling argument
Yes.
that goes through the same lines of dialogue over and over and over again.
I know he can get the job, but can he
do the
job?
job?
I'm not arguing with you.
I'm not arguing that with you.
I'm not arguing that with
Just
you.
over and over and over
And the
again.
actor does such a... I've seen this character actor in lots of things.
Dan Hedaya.
I
Yeah.
usually think of him as Carla's ex-husband and from Cheers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, but he does a fantastic job. When you're saying the same things over and over again as an actor, you can either make it very boring or you can escalate it too much.
Yeah.
Because as an actor, you're trained, every time you repeat something, you have to say it differently. But he did a fantastic job of not only saying it the same way every time, but also making it feel like it was escalating without ever escalating it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like a shepherd's tone.
Sure. I was just like, it was a wonderful balancing act of acting, and I was like, that's great.
Yeah. Both
But-
times that he's in there.
Oh,
he
yeah.
does it,
Yeah.
It's great.
Every time.
This movie is so stacked with actors.
Oh my
Pun not
goodness.
intended. But and we'll obviously point
There's
them out
so
as we
many
go along.
fantastic character performances in this film.
Everyone does great in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Joe makes some disgusting looking coffee. And
Oh, the creamer!
Just-
But it's so true. It's
Oh
so-
yeah, no, it feels like it's an exaggeration, but it feels like every coffee I've ever had in a workplace.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
every single one.
Absolutely.
Every
Well, the
single one.
lighting. Every time I'm anywhere with that sort of lighting, I think of this movie.
the gross
Yeah, and
fluorescent
he's like,
lighting.
yeah, and he
This
makes
is- it
that
makes me-
noise. I can hear him go.
It makes me
You
feel.
know?
It makes me feel puffy and bloated.
Yep.
He says, and I absolutely. I think we've all been in that situation.
There's also a woman, Dee Dee, Meg Ryan's first role, who's
Yeah.
constantly puffing on an inhaler.
Yes, she can't breathe, but
Yeah.
it's just like the whole weight of the job on
Right.
everybody.
Oh, that's a
manifests
good point.
in different ways.
I didn't recognize her when she came in. I actually thought it was the actress from Weeds.
Mary Louise Parker?
That's it. Yeah, I thought it was Mary Louise Parker
Hmm.
for like a while until at a certain point she finally smiles, and Meg Ryan has a very distinct
Yeah, she
smile. I was like,
Joe sits down at his desk and he takes out a very garish lamp with a tropical scene on the shade, which
Yeah.
slowly rotates.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Waturi comes in to give Joe a dressing down because there's not enough catalogs, even though Joe told him to order more catalogs.
3 weeks ago, then 2 weeks ago. But
Did
you tell me last week?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, another movie that this reminded me of a lot was the Crispin Glover starring adaptation of Bartleby the Scrivener.
I have not seen
What?
that.
I have not seen all of it, but it's very strange.
Crispin Glover.
Crispin Glover, yeah.
Right.
But that's set in an office very much like this opening.
The movie that this scene reminded me most of was, it's not a movie that I've seen, but it's just a trailer. The trailer for the Ben Stiller remake of The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Okay.
In the trailer for that, it's like a little short film where Ben Stiller is like really sad at a job, and then he sees a poster for traveling, and he like runs into the poster and is suddenly traveling all over the place. Never saw the movie. Apparently it was really bad because it's a remake of The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Why would you do that?
I mean, technically it's a readaptation.
Oh, is it the book?
It's a short story.
Oh, okay. But in the, I was thinking about that when he put the lamp up there, because I was like, I knew that he was going to travel to someplace with a volcano. I thought at the time to fight it, but I knew he was going to go somewhere where a volcano was.
You thought this was like a sci-fi movie.
I thought we were finally going to revisit the kaiju genre.
You
and
thought-
Tom Hanks was going to grow giant size, a volcano was going to get up, and they were going to have a boxing match.
Well, yeah, you thought this was a sequel to Big.
Right.
Where he gets really big.
He gets even bigger.
And he fights a volcano.
And he fights a volcano.
Logical.
Yeah.
Logical.
Right, logical. But he was looking at the lamp, and it had all these tropical images, and I was like, that is his only escape, is by looking into this location that doesn't exist, and that's where he is eventually going to be.
Exactly.
Well, and then he comes in, the boss comes in and says, get rid of the light. Literally says, get rid of the light. And
Yeah.
I mean, you can feel the
Oh
tone.
yeah, I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is also not subtle.
No. And then, well, I even love.
Get rid of your light.
Yeah, I loved the simplicity too of
Yeah.
when he comes in his shoe, the soul. You know, they're talking
Yeah.
about the soul, and he says, "I'm
Yeah,
losing my soul."
I'm losing my soul. Yeah, that was funny. I like that.
Yeah, no, I loved that.
But yeah, we learn that Joe is frequently sick. He goes to the doctor all the time.
Yes.
And Waturi tells Joe that nobody feels good. After childhood, it's all downhill.
Yep. He wrote that down too. Nobody feels good. Nobody feels
Oh
good.
my goodness.
Okay. He also says, and it's stupid, but he says carte blank, which to
Yeah,
me
no.
totally encapsulates the kind
It's-
of guy that he is.
Exactly.
He's one of those guys that says carte blank.
Yeah.
You know.
If this performance was not played by him, it would have been Danny DeVito. God blank. Herc. Everybody's miserable. Herc. You
And-
gotta be a hero.
Stuff like that, I'm always curious, was that the director? Was that in the script? Was that the
Sure,
actor?
yeah.
Either way, fantastic choice.
Yeah.
Later, Joe goes to a doctor, played by Robert Stack.
The voice.
The
it's
voice.
So great.
Oh, man.
Well, apparently Robert Stack and Lloyd Bridges were both cast in this movie specifically because John Patrick Shanley remembered seeing them when he was a kid, and he was like, if I'm going to make a movie, I need to have my favorite actors
There
in
you
it,
go.
even if they're in small parts. And Steven Spielberg said, I'll call them for you, and he's like, we can do that?
Ah, well,
And then they got them.
my husband came in and was like, is this an airplane reunion? Yes.
I was thinking the same
exactly
thing,
like
yeah.
Airplane. Same
Yeah,
guy.
Leslie Nielsen plays the volcano.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Robert Stack.
Who doesn't love Robert Stack?
Sure.
ISIS.
ISIS, yeah, probably.
All of the criminals that have been
All
caught.
of it, exactly.
All of
Yeah.
the criminals that have been apprehended due to
Every solved mystery,
the
because they don't get their
the
time in the
investigative
sun.
work that has ensued based on
Yes.
We learn that Joe has been feeling sick for about 8 years, since he left the fire department. And Dr. Robert Stack tells Joe he has a brain cloud. And I
Yes.
love that phrase.
I do too, and I love the way that he says it in his voice. And he's, "You have a brain."
You have a brain cloud.
Robert Stack could literally sell me a bridge. Like he could say anything, and I would believe it.
And what's also great is the world that's been built just in these short few minutes.
Yeah.
You're fully like, yeah, brain cloud.
Brain cloud.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Joe has a
and,
brain
and he
cloud.
says it because it's his voice. He says, "Your brain will simply fail, followed by your body." And you're just
Yeah.
like, "That's something a doctor would say." Yes, for sure.
Yeah, that's the order
the
that's
technical term.
That's the order that those things
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
And yeah.
And even the way he describes it, like in retrospect, I did remember that I remembered very little about this movie, but I did remember that Joe obviously does not die of a brain cloud.
Right.
But even knowing that, like the way he describes it, it's a black fog of tissue running down the center of his brain, which is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
But you
I'm like,
completely buy it.
exactly.
Because Robert Stack's
Because it's
saying
Robert
it. I
Stack
get it,
saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that
It's
of course.
so simple, and you're just like, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very destructive and incurable.
Yeah.
He has about 6 months to live, 4 or 5 of which he'll be in perfect health. And then Joe wonderfully says, I'm not in perfect health now. And Robert Stack's like, this is probably just a manifestation of all your PTSD.
Because he was a
Firefighter.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
courage is what matters to him.
exactly.
Right.
Courage is very important.
Because of the fairy tale nature of this movie and the vibe that it gives off, even after I'd forgotten that the opening had that fairy tale bit, I genuinely expected for him to be cured of the brain cloud by True Love's kiss during this movie.
Sure. I forget about the brain cloud. Honestly, like I forget all about it by the time they're getting to the place
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're getting to the island and all of that. I'm not even
there's
thinking about the brain cloud anymore.
This is a pretty packed movie. There's a lot of stuff in.
There is it's only about 90 minutes, so they cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time. So it's
Absolutely. And then I wrote down a note when the doctor says you got to live well.
Live it well.
Live in the time you have left. Live it well. And I wrote down he has to Queen Latifah it up.
Yes.
Because that's the only other movie I've seen with this plot is that Queen Latifah movie where she is going to die.
where she jumps into a volcano.
Yeah, the famous Queen Latifah volcano movie.
Yeah.
Queen Latifah versus the volcano.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a franchise. I don't know if we made that clear earlier. Steve Buscemi versus the volcano, underrated.
Hal Holbrook, R.I.P. versus the volcano. As Mark Twain, of course.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Then Huck and Jim went down on a river of lava.
And thank you for not saying Jim's full name.
Well, that's one of Spring's favorite books.
I know.
Yeah, I used to teach that book.
She knows
Yeah.
it well.
I do.
Yeah.
She knows Jim's legal Christian name. As Joe is leaving, we get Ray Charles' beautiful rendition of Old Man River as Joe hugs a very big dog.
Hugs the dog. I wrote
He
hugs the
hugs
dog! Exclamation
A
point.
huge Great Dane.
Yes.
And the woman walking the dog is very uncomfortable, clearly, so he hugs her.
He hugs
Right.
her too.
And they both, even the dog and the lady are both kind of like, get away from me.
Yeah.
And he's so sad because he so desperately needs that
Yes.
connection
Yeah.
with another human being.
Well, he's just been delivered devastating news, and
Yeah.
Joe has no friends or family or support system.
No.
So he just grabs what's immediately in front of him, this giant dog, this Marmaduke.
This
Yeah, it is a
big,
Marmaduke,
big
kind of.
Scooby-Doo.
Back at work, Joe quits his job, and he
He
makes...
fixes the flower first.
That's
Oh,
right,
He
he
fixes the
does.
flower. He comes back and sees the flower's been trampled and he fixes it.
He does,
And then he
which is
goes
adorable.
Yes, he rights the world's wrongs,
Yes.
much like Batman.
It's simple.
It is simple.
Yeah.
And
it is
it's
simple.
not, you don't have to talk it up. You just watch it happen.
Exactly,
which
and
is
it's
beautiful.
a very short moment, and it does work well. For its lack of subtlety, it's perfect for the movie.
Yeah.
He makes a big quitting speech, which includes Joe very creepily talking to Dee Dee and threatening to kill his boss.
Well, I want to point out here that this is one of my favorite bits of writing in the movie, is this monologue, and it starts with my favorite. I love every part of it, but probably my favorite part is that it starts with, "I should say something here." The boss says to him as he's on his way out, "It won't be hard to replace you," and he says under his breath, "I should say something here." And he turns around back to him, I don't remember the entire monologue, obviously, but as you were saying, like, yeah, there are some comments about Dee Dee that are a little bit creepy. I would say that they're not.
I listened to her skirt
No,
rustle.
I think it's beautiful. I wrote those down when he says, like, gold in my hand, like sugar on my tongue. I could hear your fabric rustle. It's not creepy when Tom Hanks says it. If somebody else said it, maybe it would be. But Tom Hanks could tell me that my words were like sugar on his tongue, and I'd be just fine with that.
Sure.
What I
Hold on. We should also point out.
Yeah.
That technically, this isn't Tom Hanks.
Yeah,
This is mullet Tom Hanks.
that's right.
But
This
only
is-
briefly.
Only briefly,
And
but when he
it
delivers
was
this
1990, so
What-
it was still
they even-
moderately okay.
they
we were just
knew it was
learning.
not okay. That's why he
No,
loses.
well, that's why
That's
it's part
why he
of the.
loses
That's
it.
part of the. Yes, the.
But
His transformation
Yeah.
into a person who should be allowed to vote.
Right, but he was still likable to us with the mullet because it was still close enough
Well, yeah,
to that time
he's
period.
the schlemazel, he's the
Yes,
schlemazel.
yes.
But here's what I appreciate about that part is that he's not saying that, like, if this were a movie that had been made in the 60s, the character would have said something about, like, this woman's been around here and I've never grabbed her or gathered her up into my arms and kissed her, like, and it would have been played by Jimmy Stewart or Cary Grant, like someone who you would actually be threatened by, not Jimmy Stewart, but still. And in this movie, he doesn't say that. He just says this woman has this appreciable woman, this woman that that has things to admire, has come in and out, and I have never noticed that.
Yeah,
that's all he's saying.
Sure,
And-
defend this creep.
No, it's beautiful.
This man should be on
Think
a-
about how many things do we
Nothing-
not appreciate
nothing
in
he
our lives
says-
that are right in front of us?
It did make me feel a little bit creepy, I admit, but at the same time, I acknowledge that he didn't say anything about taking away her agency in that.
True.
Just saying, I should have asked her out. That's basically all he's saying. But yeah, it was written beautifully, the analogies that he comes up with, and when he talks about just killing his boss, which, yeah, he absolutely should be going to prison after this. That's what would happen in real life. But
He sold his life for $300.
for $300 a week, which is insane,
It's-
and the way that we all live. And I was listening to it, and I've been listening to a lot of socialist propaganda recently. And if I hadn't been, I would be a socialist. If I hadn't decided this week I'm a socialist, I would be a socialist after listening to that monologue.
Okay.
So,
Joe Versus the Volcano, radicalizing people since 1990.
but I just thought it was a fantastic monologue, and I want to use it in an audition someday.
Do it.
It's too beautiful. And I love how also the boss. I know I'm rattling on. Just tell me to shut up. But I know that I love also how the boss can do nothing but say the same thing over and over again. He's like, you better get out of here. And he gets more and slightly more desperate every time he says it because he actually has no power. And it's fantastic.
This is a non sequitur.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it's tangentially related. Dan Hedaya should have played Yogi Bear.
I
You don't
can't.
have to agree. It's a controversial statement.
No, I
It's a hot
I can
take.
see
It's the
it, but I
hottest of
don't
hot
know that
takes.
I want to see it.
I think it would be. I think.
Where's that picnic basket?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was playing in my head. Yep, that's it exactly. But don't go past this part without talking about how he pops back in. I love how he pops
He
back
pops back in to ask Dee Dee out on
in.
a date.
And I love the way that her whole demeanor changes in just that part. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Well, because she's never seen Joe like this before.
No,
He's just
and
been.
because earlier she sort of criticizes him for taking it.
Yeah.
That was another thing I wanted to say is that when he is in this position because he was too neurotic and full of trauma to continue being a firefighter, that's not his fault. He had to work this job and he's stuck doing this job and is constantly criticized for things he didn't do.
Yeah.
And not only was the boss criticizing him, he was criticizing himself for being sick. Meg Ryan was criticizing everything, and everyone, including himself, blames himself up until when he finally breaks free in this monologue for stuff that are entirely outside of his power.
Sure. And he pops back in and asks her, and her whole demeanor changes, and she's, I guess so, sure. And she starts twirling her hair, and it's just so delightful. It's just
It's wonderful. She's
This is
fantastic.
absolutely my favorite Meg Ryan movie.
Yeah. Mine too.
Yeah.
And they go to dinner at a Mexican restaurant. And Joe's sort of rambling like Jeff Goldblum in The Fly. He's just talking like a maniac, very up about how you got to live life. And,
Gotta love it.
and Joe pays off the mariachi band that always exists in movie Mexican restaurants.
To make their hearts swell and burst.
Exactly.
He says,
love it.
I bribed them to sing us a song that would drive us mad and makes our hearts swell and burst.
Yep.
And that brought Twin Peaks into my mind. It sounded like something that either Agent Cooper or Albert would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love Twin Peaks. I do love Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And Tom Hanks' mullet is catching the light in a very romantic
Oh,
way.
stop. But he says, the first time I saw you, I felt like I had seen you before, as he says several times
Yes.
in the movie. But that whole, when she looks at him and says, where are you?
Yeah.
That's such a relatable. I want to say that sometimes to people when
Yeah.
I don't understand what has just
the
you know,
energy that
Yeah,
they're
and
giving.
she says,
Yeah.
"Where are you?" It's
The-
just wonderful.
Dynamic change that has happened. And here's a wonderful detail that I notice as they exit the restaurant. For no reason, there's a man in a classic sailor suit standing on the corner.
I noticed it too.
No reason for him to be there, just character for...
On top of that, behind that sailor, there's also a poster on the wall.
Yes, of a volcano.
Of a volcano.
Yep.
Oh.
And although it's not entirely visible in the version that I saw because I have bad Wi-Fi in my apartment, they littered the street with broken mirror shards of the set.
Oh, did they?
So it would sparkle as they were walking by.
But the other thing that happens in that scene is her hand being clenched.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love the clenched hand that she has, that she doesn't really unclench. But then at the end, you see her offer, when they're at the volcano, you see her offer her clenched hand, but she opens it.
Which is a fantastic detail. Especially for Dee Dee right now because...
She is clenched.
She's on edge. Joe is such a different person.
Yeah, and she was on edge before.
Yeah, she's just
Yes.
clenched.
Yeah,
That
she's just
character
a
is
clenched person.
And Joe does not make things better when they go back to his place.
Well, as they go back to his place, we see the city as a rainbow.
Rainbow, I wrote that
Oh.
too.
All the lights
It's
in the city are
beautiful.
rainbow, and then when they get
That's
to
right.
then when we get to his apartment, every window is gelled a different
Yep,
color.
it's beautiful.
Which is absolutely. Which is a sign that he is secretly gay.
Yes.
Yes, for sure.
For sure.
At Joe's place, he tells Dee Dee that he's going to die. And this is a big turnoff for her.
He says that as they're making out.
Yeah.
They're starting to make out. She's in the mood to go all the way tonight, and he's like, "I'm gonna die," and she's like, "Okay, wait a second."
I can't handle
Wait
it.
a second.
I can't handle it.
Yeah.
Now, how would you guys react in this situation?
I mean, certainly it's a mood killer.
Yeah.
You have to stop what you're doing, I think, and acknowledge what the person has said and at least attempt to process it before
I think
deciding on your path.
I think I would definitely have to have a conversation about that information.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
At the moment, I don't know if I would immediately
Run away?
run away like that. I mean, I've never been in that situation
No.
before, but I feel like if I was raring to go, and someone said that, I would at least have to sit down and be like, okay, I've known you for a long time because we're coworkers in the situation. Let's talk this out. What is this? And then the minute they said brain cloud, the movie would be over.
Yeah.
And he does lead with it's not catching.
He does.
It's not catching, that's what you want. You want the reassurance.
Exactly.
Right, yeah. You want to know that it's not.
Communicable.
I was about to make a very bad joke, and I'm going to not do that.
But I think it's a bit unfair on Dee Dee's part because we're all dying.
That's
Joe's
very
just doing
true.
it He's doing it more efficiently than anybody else.
He's
She should be more turned on
He's got down to a
because of his
science.
alacrity towards death.
right. Yeah.
That's what women want.
He's found something.
Right? Don't they want a man who's going to die soon?
How much money they got.
Yeah, no.
The next day, Joe's noodling around on his ukulele.
That was something that he took from his office. We see him before he leaves. He gathers up his effects, and it's a ukulele or how did you say it?
Ukulele.
Ukulele. I want to pronounce it right.
That's not how it's pronounced.
That's definitely
Just
how
say
it's pronounced.
ukulele.
Ukulele. And he has
The Odyssey.
the Odyssey and a bunch of other classic books. It's
Robinson Crusoe.
Robinson Crusoe. It's him collecting his personhood back from the company store.
Romeo
Also,
Oh, that's right, Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet. And I completely forgot one of my favorite bits when he's quitting is he goes up to a pipe that has a wheel on it.
Oh, yeah.
And turns
It
the
says,
drain.
do not touch
Do
it.
not
He turns
touch.
it and it says, nothing happened.
Yeah. Well, you know that he wanted to do it all the time.
I've been imagining what would happen if I did this for years. There's at least one of those types of things I've wanted to do in every job
Sure.
that I've ever had when I went out the door, and I've never had the courage. And I think if I had done something, nothing would have happened.
Probably.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And Lloyd Bridges, the fantastic Lloyd Bridges,
Oh my God.
shows up at his door with his duck head cane.
It's great.
And
I love Lloyd Bridges so much.
he's like Robert Stack, who doesn't?
So
Yeah.
bright, too.
He's
His
so-
eyes, he's so alive.
He has this wonderful carnival huckster energy.
Yes.
Where, again, you know that this man is untrustworthy
Yeah,
just
and
from watching films, and his energy, like, it's
yes.
too infectious.
As we find out over the course of the movie, he's actually like a pretty nasty person, but like
Yes.
he's charming as heck as
Yes.
he gets into
Yes.
this film.
He plays Samuel Harvey Graynamore, which is a great name.
It is a great name.
His pipe is shaped like a naked lady.
Yes, I wrote that down, too.
Yeah, and his cane is shaped like a goose.
A goose or a duck's head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, wonderful details for the props and the set design. And he wants to hire Joe to jump into a volcano.
When he comes in and he tells him it's not a nice place,
Yeah, and he's like, not-
dingy, and hits the wall.
punches
he
through the
the wall
wall.
is dingy. He calls it dinky. It's so wonderful,
my
and he's got
God.
this huge smile on his face as he's completely demoralizing every single, his Joe's existence.
No wonder Jeff Bridges is so weird.
And Joe's just standing there in shock, and he says, "I see it as a sign of tremendous sophistication that you haven't asked me my name." I love it so much. Sure, that's it. Tremendous sophistication. And then he says, "You quit your job," and then he just says, sounded like a dumb job."
Yeah.
Like, completely.
Yeah.
Because he needs to rook Joe in.
Absolutely.
He needs to break him down
Absolutely.
so he can build him back up to what he needs him to do.
That's
I want to
It's-
see Lloyd Bridges do The Music Man.
Well, I have bad news for you.
I know.
R.I.P. Lloyd Bridges. See you at the crossroads.
Yeah, see you at the crossroads, Lloyd Bridges. But like, I think he could do a really good performance as that character.
Oh,
I could
definitely.
see it,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
I could see it.
Yeah, you're talking about the carnival huckster energy and all that stuff.
Yes.
So he says that he there's an island that has a special element that he needs called boobaroo,
Boobaroo.
or as it translates, unobtainium.
Yes, it is an unobtainium. And a remarkably negligible part of this plot. We never...
They never talk about Boobaroo again. But I love listening to Lloyd Bridges say,
Yeah.
Boobaroo.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
He gives a great little info dump.
Mm-hmm.
There's an island called Waponi Woo, which means the little island with the big volcano. And that they believe that the fire god inside the volcano, which is called the Big Woo.
I love it. It's so simple.
Yeah.
The big woo. And the music behind it is so dramatic, and it's wonderful.
It's perfect.
This is everything I wanted from a prequel to Moana.
And this is the part where you can see the pattern on the wall with the light.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
When they're having this conversation.
Yeah.
And
This is a moment when the jaws of capitalism are once again encircling him.
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They believe that the fire god inside the volcano needs to be appeased every 100 years by a willing person jumping inside, or else the island will sink into the ocean. And Lloyd Bridges wants Joe to be that sacrifice.
Because he's not going to live for very long anyway.
And he
Exactly.
knows of his history. He goes through Joe's history as a firefighter
Yes.
and going back up for the last child and all of that, talking about that's heroic.
Yeah. And this is another very fairy tale element. The figure that comes out of nowhere and knows everything about you and offers you incredible riches, as Graynamore does. He gives him a bunch of credit cards, tells him he has 20 days before he has to jump. And it'll be a great 20 days with plane rides and yacht trips. And Joe agrees, because why wouldn't he?
You'll have until midnight to enjoy the ball,
Well,
Joe.
he He really talks it up, though. He talking about
yeah.
the kind of people making those decisions. You know, that's the high country, making it sound as if Joe is so heroic to even consider such a thing.
No, he gives a good pitch.
Yeah, he really
Yeah.
does. And then Joe, what I love about this movie is you think that it's going to go over the top then.
Right.
And Joe is going to say something that's, long and fairy tale-esque or whatever.
Yeah.
But he just says, all right, I'll do it. I love it because
Like,
every
why
time
not?
it builds like that, it just comes down again with something very simple. Just like, but the timing stinks at the
It's-
end.
Yeah, right,
Just-
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People are so matter of fact in this movie. It's hilarious.
I love it. It's true to life.
And the MVP for that goes to Abe Vigoda
Oh,
in the last 20 minutes of the film.
I'm going back down now.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I love about it. I do.
Abe Vigoda is just the king of no selling.
Oh, absolutely. Joe rents a limo for the day to go shopping, and his limo driver, Ozzie Davis.
Ozzie Davis is the MVP of this podcast at
Yes,
this point.
he is.
He has turned in more time.
I believe so, and we're
Yeah.
just big Ozzie Davis fans in general.
Huge
from
Ozzie Davis fans.
Do the Right Thing.
Ali and his gang just beat Tooth Decay.
right, he
the
was in that.
masterpiece.
I listened to that.
Yes, Joe wants to get some new clothes, but he doesn't know where or what his style is.
Yeah.
And he wants advice from Marshall, Ozzie Davis's character.
Yeah.
And he gives this wonderful monologue about how he can't tell Joe who he is.
That's it.
Yeah.
Clothes are such a personal thing.
I believe the clothes make the man.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he can't tell
I
him.
don't know you. I don't want to know you. Ozzie Davis can. Ozzie Davis is just an incredible actor.
He is.
He's so good in this part.
And they go to an Armani store where,
And who doesn't love a montage
Yes.
to that song?
I will say, if nothing else that we say about this movie makes you want to see the film, at least buy the soundtrack.
yes,
Yeah.
there's
It's
some
fantastic.
great.
It really is. It goes so well.
there's
I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it after we finish talking about it because it's just so good.
Joe buys them both Armani tuxes.
Yep.
That's such a
As
wonderful moment.
payment for Marshall getting to know him, he
Yeah,
gets
he
tux.
says you didn't. You're not getting paid to give me all this advice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We get a shopping and makeover montage where, as we said before, Tom Hanks loses his mullet.
He finally gets rid of that mullet.
He buys that ridiculous hat.
Yes, it's like,
I love it so much.
It's
that
like
he
a-
even buys the hat.
and he has like a safari sort of get up on.
She
and the
says
hat.
it later. She says, "Why are you dressed like Jungle,
Jungle Jim."
I love that she actually said that.
Yes.
You know, because you think things like that, but you don't really say it.
Yes.
But she's just like,
Yeah.
"Why are you dressed like Jungle Jim?"
Exactly. And then my favorite bit in the montage is when he meets the character I called Luggage Man.
Yep.
Yes.
My new favorite superhero.
That part is so.
This is one of your favorite parts, isn't it?
I absolutely
So
love
good.
it. It's because you're looking everything that Joe says that he's going to do when he goes through where he's going to go and how he's going to be on a yacht and how he's
Yeah.
going to be on an island. And the guy is so excited. He says, "That's
Yeah.
very interesting as a luggage problem."
Yes.
Like his whole life.
He takes all the
is-
energy that Sherlock Holmes takes into solving a case and puts it into his luggage
That's
job.
his lens. That's his lens. Everything
Yeah.
is
Yeah, it's
luggage, and he's
luggage,
so excited. He says, "May you live to be 1,000 years."
That is, yes.
Because he's so happy that Joe
Yes.
got all those trunks that ultimately save his life multiple times.
Yes.
No, this guy is the most committed, genuine person in the movie.
Yes.
He's wonderful.
The actor who plays this is Barry McGovern. He hasn't been in many movies. I don't know if he was more of a television actor,
I don't
but he should have been in a ton of stuff because he's
He
fantastic.
deserved an Oscar for this part.
And this performance is not. It's not big.
No.
It's very subdued, but the excitement, like you were saying, is so
He's got this
palpable.
internalized intensity to him that you can't take your eyes off of him.
No, and it's so beautifully done. The whole room, the way that showcase room works,
Oh,
that they
yes.
go through a particular door to look at the very special
It's
luggage.
like the entryway of the Haunted Mansion at Disney.
It's so beautiful. It
Yeah.
really, the whole part, and that guy, he has so much life in him for somebody who looks like he's been so beaten down.
Yes,
by
he's
his
sort
existence.
of gaunt, a little bit hangdog.
I'll tell you how popular this scene is and how much people remember it. I looked up that interview to watch, and I did it just by YouTubing. I searched Joe Versus the Volcano. One of the first suggestions that comes up when you type in Joe Versus the Volcano is
Luggage
scene. Like, what's one of the first things? because people just love the luggage guy.
He's wonderful.
He's amazing, and yes,
a luggage problem. There's such a great
May you
pause
live to
right
be
before
1,000
the timing of
years.
it. Ooh, as a luggage problem. It's great. It's wonderful.
Joe buys 4 top-of-the-line, watertight steamer trunks, and again, the wonderful blessing, may you live to be 1,000 years old, sir. Joe checks into a fancy hotel and is very alone.
I love the bit where he asks Marshall about where to go, what's the best hotel,
Yes.
and Marshall says the Pierre. He says, we're off to the Pierre.
Well, first Joe wants to go to the plaza.
Right? He's like, that's okay.
Yeah,
That's all right.
where would you go?
Pierre.
I did with Pierre.
We're off to the Pierre.
But I mean, a limo driver, if you think about it, would know those things.
Oh, yeah, no,
Because
absolutely.
they're driving, they're driving people to the best places all the time.
And
Right.
that's another wonderful thing about this movie is all of these characters, for how little we see them, are so fully realized
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
round characters and different. Marshall isn't the same character as Graynamore, isn't the same character as Dr. Ellison. They
Even the
all have their
characters-
own quirks.
Even the characters that Meg Ryan plays
All
are
strikingly
completely
different.
different people.
I love that. I
Yes.
do. But it's interesting because that leads into when you're into the airport. Did
Yep.
you notice the people getting off the gate? Did you look? This is the first time I've ever noticed it.
No, what happened?
A ton of them are dressed identically. There are a whole bunch of people that come out behind that are all in these striped, very not like a regular fashion-y striped shirt, like almost
Yeah.
like an old-fashioned prison kind of striped shirt. They're all a whole bunch of them. Then some sort of poobah from the Catholic Church comes through with their gear on, and a bunch of children dressed in uniform come running after that, and so they're all of these people that look the same. And then I started to really think about the doubles idea within the movie, the fact that Meg Ryan is played by the same person, the fact that all of those people look, so it's
Wow.
clear. It's
Yeah, no,
really
it's
clear
an intentional
that
choice.
Absolutely.
And so then I started kind of questioning, well, what does this mean? Does this mean
Yeah.
we don't see things in nuance? Does this mean that, everything is essentially just a copy version of something else that we
Yeah.
see? Like, what's
Right.
the message here?
Yeah.
So I started really kind of thinking about that and trying to connect it with Meg Ryan, who, I mean,
Sure,
it's a clear
yeah.
and intentional choice, especially since he
because
said
this is the very scene where we see the first
Meg-
repeat of
of
Meg Ryan
right.
in the
Right,
movie.
it's right before
It's
that.
right there, yeah.
And the fact that he says twice in the movie, I felt like I've seen you before.
Yes.
Then
Yeah.
I started really thinking.
Time is a flat circle.
Yeah.
It could also be speaking about the uniformity of everybody but Joe, who's breaking out of this, and
Sure.
that's a wonderful detail.
That's amazing.
Good job, Hawkeye.
I just noticed it for the first time last night. I was.
It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
But yeah, Joe flies to L.A. where he meets Angelica Graynamore.
Who's a flibberty gibbet.
Flippity gibbet. I love that.
I love that so much. I wrote that in my note.
I do.
I'm a flippity
More
gibbet.
people should just identify. I identify as a flippity gibbet because that would just make your life so much easier. If I'm a flippity gibbet, then you're just like, okay, and you know that things are going to happen as a result of that.
But this character is fantastic.
I
She's.
love her.
I have no clue what voice or accent Meg Ryan is
No idea.
doing, but I love it
I
so
love it.
much.
I love it.
Yeah.
She feels so much like a 40s or 50s screwball comedy character.
Yeah, well,
Great.
so did her first character was clearly like a screwball secretary. Oh no, what if I don't get to work on time? Oh, Mr. J will be mad at me. But this is
This is so fantastic. Her little movements, her little poses she'll strike.
Yeah.
And she also is the source of your favorite line
I have
in
no
the movie.
response. I have no response to that.
Oh my
I love it. I love it. So there are so many times
so
in regular
good.
conversations
Yeah.
where people have said things to me, and I just wanted to say, I have no response to that.
right. Yeah. yeah.
But I know that that's not acceptable,
Of course
and
not.
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
probably would be offended or confused, rightfully so. But I
Yeah.
mean, isn't that just the truest thing ever?
It is.
Sometimes somebody says something to you, and you just want to say, I have no response to that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want
Yeah.
to put the mental effort or energy in to try to come up with something appropriate to say to you.
Yeah.
I have no response to that.
Her character is a similar character to Joe in a lot of ways. As Joe is a character who the film continually impresses upon us as free. He's free of things. He's dressing different. Even the fact that he's dressing differently
Once he
than the people
dresses
in the
differently,
airport.
you start to see a difference.
He's,
for sure.
he's a very free person. He's untethered to the reality we all have to face. What's this character's name again?
Angelica.
Angelica. She's the only Meg Ryan character I didn't write the name down for some reason. But Angelica is very tethered to her own position. She's in a position she doesn't like. She has to work for her father, who she does not agree with, and she is stuck in that position by her own fear. But because of that, she is so depressed that instead of allowing herself, like Dee Dee and Joe before her, to just become these crushed little maggots sitting at their desks, sort of clicking away, she has turned this into this laissez-faire attitude of, I don't care about anything.
But she has her art as an outlet. She has an
Yes,
outlet.
Yeah.
she does have an outlet.
She's a painter and a poet.
Yes. Again, wonderful little details that just build up the character and tell us so much.
Yeah, and because of that, she doesn't need to worry about offending anybody. If she doesn't want to say something, I have no response to that.
Yep.
She's done with the conversation.
It's so
over now.
honest. It's
Yeah.
so honest.
Right.
It's beautiful.
They
Perfect poem.
look at they're in a restaurant. There's this great moment. They're sitting in the restaurant where the first I don't have a response to that happens.
Yes.
And there's this wonderful lighting where everything in the apartment is kind of dark except for just Meg Ryan's face, which is glowing with light shining off of her. There's later on in the movie, there's symbolism relating Meg Ryan's character at that point in the film to the moon. The moon does not have light of its own.
Right. Well,
reflects
and he
off.
gives Dee Dee the lamp when he leaves the office too.
Right. Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
that's
That does.
right.
Because I think
Completely
you're
forgot
gonna,
about that.
you're gonna, you might need this or whatever he says, and gives her the lamp.
Yeah, and then so she points over at a painting in the corner, which is one of hers. It's like a comic book panel.
Yeah, it's sort of like a
thing.
pop art thing.
He looks at it and asks, "How'd you come up with it?" or something like that. And she says, "You got to understand about art.
It comes from someplace."
And then we literally go into the painting and discover where it's from.
Yep.
They are suddenly in the
They're
car.
at a scenic overlook.
Yep.
And this is where Angelica is talking about her depression.
Yes.
About how she feels like she doesn't have any control, that her
Right.
father controls her life.
And I love, she says, I want to die, I want to kill myself. And Joe's answer for why she should not caught me off guard. Like usually when someone says, you shouldn't die, you have so much to live for, or which he does kind of say later. But at first his answer is, or suicide is wrong. But instead he says, well, that's going to take care of itself. You're going to die anyway. Like that's not your job.
No, that's not up to you. Some things aren't up to you.
Some things aren't up to you. That's just the way that nature is. We all end. So there's no point in ending prematurely.
And then they have that conversation where they talk about taking the leap and doing the
Yes.
thing. Taking the leap, that's not a hard word.
Yeah.
Doing the thing that you're afraid of doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she says, when she's truly upset in that, when she really breaks down and she says, this is the kind of conversation where it doesn't cost you anything.
Yes.
And I love that line
That's a
so
great
much.
line.
And she does such a beautiful job when
She
she delivers
does.
that, because you understand that's also something you feel. You've been in situations where
Oh, yeah.
you realize, sure,
Yeah.
it doesn't cost you anything.
Yes,
And-
this is easy for you.
Yeah, it's even apropos in that moment, because not only does he not have to take the same risks that she has to, but nothing that he does right now is a risk under the assumption that he's going to die.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Because all of the consequences that could come from any of his actions or any of her actions to him don't exist. Like
Sure,
by the
he's
time
liberated.
any
Yeah.
of them come back, he's gone.
There's the morning. Then the next morning they get together, and just the loneliness and the yearning of that night. The night when he's alone after
Yeah.
she offers to come up,
And
And he says no.
no, thank you.
No.
Yeah,
and then the next morning she does that painting that's much less poppy.
yeah,
You
Yeah.
know, that beautiful kind of moon painting.
Oh, yeah.
And then she actually describes herself, I believe it is, as grotesque, and it makes me laugh so hard. She says it so lightly,
Yeah.
and it's just
As she
wonderful.
says most of the things she says,
Yeah,
even when she's
well,
being...
and that's when she says, "Why are you dressed like Jungle Jim?"
yeah.
That's great.
So now they go to the dock.
Yes.
Okay. They go to the dock where they meet Patricia Graynamore,
Yes.
Angelica's half-sister, and the last Meg Ryan role in the movie. Angelica's...
And the most Meg Ryan role. in
Yes.
this.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
she's not
becomes
doing a
herself.
voice.
Yeah.
She's not wearing a wig.
This is Meg Ryan being Meg Ryan as you're used to seeing her.
So sort of by default, this is the least interesting incarnation of Meg Ryan.
Agreed.
In this
Sure.
movie. Still does a fantastic
Yes.
job.
Oh yeah,
But
she was a star for a reason. She is super charming.
yes, she is. They set sail.
Wait, she calls him Felix. I love when she.
Yes.
She insists on calling him Felix, which it means lucky, which is a funny
It
thing
does.
to call somebody. Well, that was one of my short-listed names for Flynn, but it got vetoed.
I would have gone with Felix.
They didn't like Felix. But she calls him Felix, and that's when she says that outfit's wearing you. I say that all the time. I do. I've said that to people. Yeah,
That's a great
that outfit's
line.
wearing you, Felix.
Yeah.
Joe eventually throws his goofy hat into
But he
the
thinks
ocean.
about it. He hesitates.
Yes.
That's
He doesn't know if he's going to end up in Australia, and he needs to pretend to be Crocodile
Well, I think it
Dundee.
was really expensive.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know,
but it's not his money.
It's true, but it's hard not to. You don't just let that go with somebody
true.
flipping a switch. That's something that's so ingrained
Right.
in us to consider that sort of value.
Very true. And
It's
obviously,
hard to remember that money isn't real.
Yes,
and obviously, Joe thinks the hat is cool. Otherwise, he wouldn't have bought it.
But he also thought that mullet was cool, so.
True. I'm not saying Joe has good taste.
Who is?
At yacht dinner, we learn that Patricia doesn't like or trust or even work for her father.
Yeah.
She's doing this so she can get the yacht as payment. And the yacht is called the Tweedledee,
Yes.
which goes back to the whole thing of doubles.
Oh, yeah.
Presumably, there's a
Yes.
Tweedledum somewhere.
Yeah, she mentions it.
No, she says
Oh,
that
okay.
he has another boat called
called the
Tweedledum.
Tweedledum. Yeah.
And he has a third boat called Tweedledummer, but it doesn't get out much because, you know.
We get a little scene set to Good Lovin' by the Young Rascals.
I like the part right before that.
Okay.
When she talks, she has that moment when she's talking to him, and
Yeah.
she says she acknowledges that she knows that she has a price because he named it.
Yeah, she promised she would never work for her father, and now she is working for her father. And it's good because up to that point, I was like, okay, so this is the most Meg Ryan part. So immediately my brain was like, okay, so this is the one he ends up with. But when she immediately is antagonistic to him and they
Yes.
have that dinner, I was like, oh no, are we going to do that rom-com thing where they hate each other and then they end
Right.
up liking each other? But then when immediately after that dinner she comes up to him and is like, okay,
She turns off the light. She's more honest in
Here's-
the dark.
yes, that's right. She does. She turns off the light and
And then
and
she goes through that big explanation.
she goes
about,
into that, yeah.
And she says she's soul sick.
and she says that she's
Back to
soul
the soul
sick
thing,
and
yeah.
she's sold out. And I wrote just like Joe was.
Exactly.
And it's I love that because it completely removed that element from the movie
Yeah.
entirely,
Mhm.
and they just get to know each other as people
Yes.
from that point on. And we
That-
don't have to deal with that cliche.
Yes.
That is a great thing. You're right. You're 100% right that they nip that in the bud
Yeah.
right away. Then we get probably my least favorite scene.
Oh, really?
The fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fishing's weird, but I
I
saw
love
this
the
movie for the
scene.
first time when I was like 11.
Yeah.
So it was like it was the right combo at the time, you know.
It
love
felt.
this scene.
I like him. It's classic Tom Hanks physicality.
His
when
physical
he's,
comedy
Yes.
is
you know,
great. Yeah.
Trying to get hook the larger. Well, it's not actually a regular fish. But
It
Yeah.
turns out to be a hammerhead shark. He
Yeah.
accidentally fishes a hammerhead shark.
Yeah.
out of
And the
water.
creature effect for this hammerhead shark is wonderful. I really
the
enjoy.
entire head
It's
moves to the
horrible.
eyes.
It almost looks like it's trying to scream.
Yeah.
It's not good. No, it's not. But again, when I was 11,
Yeah.
It's great.
But
I love this.
this scene felt like a holdover from like a much worse movie from the 80s. And then we get a nice scene where Joe and Patricia lay out on the deck of the Tweedledee, and Joe finally explained he was supposed to keep this all secret, but he finally explains about the brain cloud
Well,
and
before
the
we
island.
get to that, I just sorry. There
That's
are a
fine.
couple of bits of dialogue that I really like in this scene. Joe says that he has no interest in himself. He bores himself.
Yes.
Which I thought was
That really resonated with me.
Yeah. He said that life is unbelievable. Meg Ryan says that something her father says is that there are only a few people who are
the whole world
really
is
awake.
asleep. Yep.
And the people who are awake are always amazed.
A state of constant total amazement.
That's right. Yeah, you get better notes than me. But I thought that those lines were very nice and poetic and sweet.
Yes, there's a lot of great writing. It's
John Patrick Shanley should really keep on this writings.
yeah.
I really no. I noted that scene too because
Yeah.
when she's talking about that, it was so beautiful. It made me think of honestly when I was teaching like self-reliance and Thoreau and the idea that many people are sort of asleep and the hobgoblin is a foolish consistency of little minds. And,
I'd say there's a lot of transcendentalism in this.
it really did make me think of that.
I'm not joking. I
He's not
think
joking
that's
about it.
like
We've talked about quite a few nihilistic movies on the podcast so far.
Yes.
So this was a huge change of pace
Yes.
to going from the world is nothing to the world is spectacular.
Not too long ago, we talked about. Are you familiar with the film Antichrist?
No.
Don't.
Yeah, you would not enjoy it.
Yeah, no.
Very bleak, very nihilistic film.
Yeah.
So this was a nice change of pace.
This was a very nice change of pace.
But once again, poor Joe Banks tells a lady love
Yeah.
about his old brain cloud,
Yeah.
and they run off.
Well, she gives him more time than Dee Dee did.
Yeah.
She stays there,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Do you have any?" I think he even said, "Do you have any response to that?" or something like that. And she says, "No. You said you're dying, and my mind's a blank." Which is
Again,
probably
it's
the
honest.
most Meg Ryan delivery of the entire movie. My
Yeah.
mind's a blank. And then she's like, "Good night," and walks off. Also, I noticed. I don't remember when I noticed this, but the ship captain is Bunny from Pulp Fiction.
Amanda Plummer.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
yeah.
she
And-
was
Dagmar.
Dagmar, yeah.
And another one I forgot to mention earlier on when they were doing the shopping montage. there was
Carol Kane.
She agreed to do an uncredited cameo for no money as long as they let her keep the wig she was wearing in the scene,
That's wonderful.
which is such a Carol Kane move.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
But anyway, just wanted to get those out there.
Then we get probably my favorite sequence.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, the yacht has entered a green fog, and everything we see is
So
tinted
good.
green.
Greek myth.
This reminded me a lot of how I just watched a Czech film called The Fabulous Baron Munchausen, where all the coloring in the movie is done by sort of, I don't know if they just overlaid a gel on the camera or painted the cells, but most of the movie does their color effects like this, where it's just sort of this matte green over everything.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And this is when the film, this is the stuff that I like most about the film, is this style, this strangeness.
Yeah. And I wrote down, this is why I hate the Dogma 95 movement, because they never have anything glow green.
No,
Yeah.
they don't. And very quickly, a typhoon begins to hammer the yacht, and as everybody's scrambling to keep the ship safe, Joe and Patricia fall in love.
They have a nice little kiss.
It's beautiful.
It is.
I am not a hopeless romantic. I'm really not.
I
But
know.
it's so. The music when he kisses her
Yes.
Yeah.
is such a beautiful moment. And then, but this movie never hangs on to that for
No.
more than a few moments. It
No.
gives you that, and you think, oh God, it's going to sink into this tripe. But it doesn't, because then the mask comes
Yeah.
along and cracks her
The
alongside
boom.
the head.
Yeah.
and
Yep,
the
the
boom,
boom.
sorry. And
Yeah.
there
We're
she is in the
very
water.
strict about sailing and nautical terms.
Sorry, my fault. But the lightning bolt is also the same shape.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
From the path, that's the path, the thing in the wall.
So
And
it seems to always be associated with destruction and a monumental change in Joe's life.
In imprisonment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Quick boom PSA.
Yes.
Booms are the second leading cause of death in the world of sailboating.
I'm not surprised.
I believe it.
Yeah.
We can only assume that the first is like sea madness or like some sort of
Water everywhere, not a drop to drink.
exactly.
Have you ever seen the movie Muppet Treasure Island?
Yes.
In the scene where everyone gets cabin fever and they do a musical number, that's one of the only movies that really shows the real impact of cabin fever.
Yeah.
And every time you get cabin fever, you have to do a giant elaborate musical number. More sailors fall off of ships from not having enough dancing experience.
Yes.
And it's not ever reported.
The British Navy now requires at least 5 years of tap or modern.
Right, exactly. In this PSA, never mind.
Joe jumps in after Patricia. He finds her, but the ship is struck by lightning and cracks in half, and the crew goes mostly unmourned.
There's a moment. She asks about Dagmar and the boys.
Yes,
That's
and
it.
then it's like, oh well, sorry, Amanda Plummer.
Amanda Plummer does have a really good going out scene though, where she's down in the engine and she's like, I need to stay here, take care of her for me, and he goes up to take care of her.
She really seems to love. Do you get that vibe?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I got a lot of the same vibes from her that I got from Willem Dafoe in The Life Aquatic. Luckily, Joe's luggage is watertight,
exactly.
and Joe
that
lashes.
salesman didn't lie to
No,
him
that's
for
why I
a
was so
second.
excited about the
Yes.
trunks.
Yes.
Validation.
Joe puts Patricia on top of one of them in a bit that James Cameron 100% stole from Titanic.
I was gonna say because
For
like
sure.
it's like such an exact match for their positions in Titanic.
Why did no one on the Titanic have one of these trunks?
Exactly.
Exactly. Well,
The technology wasn't there yet.
They didn't know. They didn't go to a proper luggage detective.
Clearly.
To solve their luggage problem.
Clearly.
Steamer trunks like this at the time of the Titanic would only be
Yes.
seen in Jules Verne novels
Okay, that's fair.
or the work of H.G. Wells.
I will say, going to an island out in the middle of nowhere to find a strange element, a very Jules Verne plot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also a very James Cameron plot, as we mentioned before. James Cameron, 100% thief.
James Cameron, on top of Fern Gully and Pocahontas, he also stole from Joe Versus the Volcano, literally. Oh, and also from Harlan Ellison.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, James Cameron is horrible.
Yeah, no, he sucks. Joe lashes his 4 trunks together to form a super trunk. His very own little Kon-Tiki, which now sails the waves. He gets a transistor radio playing. I guess there's a radio station run by fish in the ocean.
I thought about that.
Yeah, no, this is where the movie really breaks your suspension of disbelief.
No,
How is this man getting a radio
I
signal?
was watching it and I was thinking about another Tom Hanks movie I haven't seen, Castaway. I wrote down how can the same smeg happen to the same guy twice, which is a line from Red Dwarf.
You know how different it is because he shaves while he's
Right, because he's got all of his luggage.
You see all the things that he bought in that montage.
Yeah, he bought
sets up a mini golf course.
Yep, the
on
golf
the
ball.
thing.
Yep. And he's shaving out there. You know, it's wonderful.
But he doesn't drink any water.
No,
That's
he
just
gives
not
it-
fair.
But he
gives it all-
dances. They love the
He does
they love the
he does a
dance.
goofy Tom Hanks dance.
The dance
Yeah.
is like Elaine levels of awkward.
It's
Yeah,
wonderful, but it's
It's
Tom
the
Hanks.
goofy Tom Hanks
Yes, I
dance.
love
Right.
it.
Yeah, of course.
He like patented it.
For
And
real.
at night, this is if you ever see Tom Hanks dance, it's gonna be that goofy thing.
Right.
At night, he plays his ukulele and sings a wonderful song that I need to find on YouTube so I can get it. And it's weird that Tom Hanks is singing and playing a ukulele because YouTube didn't exist this time. So why is he doing it?
I mean,
Wasn't that song written for the movie?
I'm sure it doesn't sound like
I think it was written
know.
for the movie, as was the song that the lamp plays that goes throughout the movie. I think I read that.
the
both of
lamp
those were-
definitely is because that's a leitmotif. The lamp plays it first, and then every time
Sure.
that becomes his theme music.
Right, that's
throughout
like
the
something
movie.
about marooned. That song is
Even
like
when
marooned
he-
with you or something.
I first
Yeah.
noticed it when he goes into the doctor's office in the very beginning. They play like a funeral version of it.
Yep, it's throughout the movie. It's
Yeah.
throughout the movie. But I think the cowboy. I think I read that the cowboy song was also written for the movie.
I'm positive
Well,
it was.
it's a great song.
And a few nights later, we get the only part that I remembered from when I watched this way back when. Joe's not doing well.
Yeah.
He's shaking. He's terribly sunburnt. At night, a giant moon rises above the horizon. Joe is moved, and he offers this prayer. Dear God, whose name I do not know, thank you for my life. I forgot how big. Thank you for my life. Wonderful. Beautiful words.
Absolutely beautiful.
And this imagery of the moon being so huge, and now he has this light. Even though Meg Ryan is passed out, she's still there. He has this purpose. It's wonderful.
Just before that scene, also, there's another moment where he sees the constellations come out of the sky towards him.
Joe passes out to be awakened by Patricia, who's conveniently, they're trading off on the passing out shifts.
Yes.
Thank goodness.
Here's where she asks what happened to the crew
Yes.
and is mostly unmoved. Probably got this callousness from her father.
We don't have time in the movie at this point for her to get into this. Like,
Right.
so much of the movie has gone by. We have not gotten to Waponi Woo. We have
True.
not seen the volcano.
Little known fact, this movie was originally supposed to be a trilogy of films, and they had to cut it down significantly. Originally, the second movie was going to be an entire just them mourning constantly.
It was gonna be from the volcano's perspective. Volcano versus Joe. It was it was like a Warhol film where they just set the camera on the volcano for 14 hours. It turns out that they floated near Waponi Woo, and the locals rush out to greet them. Two great details about the Waponis, which I love. Earlier, we are told that they love orange soda.
Yes.
And this is used wonderfully by the production design team. The costumes, the props that the
Yes.
Waponis use are all parts of orange soda cans.
We made mention of the production design throughout this entire review. John Patrick Shanley reportedly spent 4 months on production design before he ever got started making the movie.
I believe it.
Yeah, because he wanted to make sure that the visual language was exactly what he wanted before going into the film.
And here's where, like I said, they spent all their budget on this last 20 minutes or so, and it looks fantastic. The screen is populated with all these tribes people. The second thing is that we're also told that the Waponis are made up of this very unique genetic mix.
Yeah.
That also includes Jewish people.
Right.
So as the Waponis are coming to greet them, we hear like a tribal island version of Hava Nagila.
And the main town crier, I guess, the one who's
Yes.
always yelling, is
Nathan
Nathan
Lane. Yes.
Yeah.
They're getting all the heavy hitters.
They're getting all the heavy hitters.
Could you, if you were going somewhere to die,
Sure.
if spring when your children eventually take you to the glue factory, who would you want to greet you other than Nathan Lane? Like if you're going to your
Right.
impending doom, you're going to want that positive energy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I usually think of Nathan Lane as being sort of neurotic energy, but in this movie he was very positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just his enthusiasm for everything he does, even when it's frustrating him.
Right, that's true.
And then they're met by the second best person who could possibly greet you on your way to death. Abe Vigoda.
Abe Vigoda.
Fish himself.
But I love the accent as soon as they start. Are you Joe? Like you expect there to be some sort of like some
Right.
other kind of accent,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
are you Joe?
You
Yes.
expect them to go full Tarzan, but instead they manage to, just as the speech that Joe makes earlier in the movie just barely avoids being sexist, this scene just barely avoids being incredibly racist.
Yes, this could have been
Just skirts around it.
this could have been something that did not age well.
Yeah.
Thankfully, because of this unique genetic makeup that we're told about earlier, which includes
Yeah.
not just Pacific Islanders, but Jewish people, Druids, and
Yeah.
somebody else. There were 4 different groups.
Yeah, it's supposed to be intentionally absurd.
Yeah,
so
so
that
it's-
you don't take it too
And
seriously.
no one's really putting brown face. They have
No.
tribal makeup on, but that's
And Abe Vigoda long ago turned into leather, so
Yes.
he looks like Abe Vigoda.
and Abe Vigoda is so great in all his line deliveries. Everything's very short,
Yes.
to the point, matter of fact.
Yeah, he's his best Abe Vigoda self in this
Yes.
movie.
Joe and Patricia are pampered and made over.
Well,
Before that is when he has the physical
Oh, he
manifestation
has-
of his soul.
Yeah.
Because that comes back again, and Joe just says, "Hope you don't lose it."
Yeah, me too. Me too.
but okay, this bugged me. Patricia is just visiting. She is pampered.
Yes.
Joe is going to die. He's their hero. He's not pampered.
No, he's
They
getting
just
beaten by
They
fish.
start slapping him with fish.
They
They-
shove the banana
they-
in his face.
That's
Smash
not a
bananas.
hero's
A guy
welcome.
bites his toes.
Yeah, that's not a hero's
Stop that,
welcome.
But she's being like tickled with
Yeah.
flowers.
Yeah,
and
no, she's having a lovely Meg Ryan time.
But I agree
This
with
is
you.
why he put her out of business and you got mail. It was revenge for this.
Sure.
Remember when we were on that island?
I wish that was the scene in the movie. It'd be so much better if it was.
He comes into our shop, locks his door, and is like, "You don't remember me, do you?"
Well, I've seen you before. And I remembered this time.
Yeah.
You won't get away with it, DD, Patricia, whatever you are.
All right, friendo. I'm gonna flip a coin. But yeah, no, I agree with
you. Ever
you.
lost on a coin toss.
I agree with you that this is no way to treat your savior.
Yeah.
Much like the mockery that Jesus Christ endured. Again, it's
At least then the Romans and the Jews did not know that he was their savior. Like they were like, this guy, we don't like this guy.
True, true. You're right.
He's been spinning some hot garbage.
you're right.
Yeah.
Jesus should have had a street team to get the word out.
That's what the disciples were for.
Well, then I guess they didn't have an excuse.
So yes, no, he
Yes.
gets very abused while she gets pampered, and then we
Which
get the
I-
ceremony where the people literally run into the gong.
Yes, I love that bit.
That was great.
Abe Vigoda's about to talk, and 2 people swing on vines into giant gongs, and then are carried away on stretchers.
Yes. They have the stretchers ready. That's my favorite
That's-
part.
yes,
This
my-
is not the first time this has happened.
That is my favorite deleted scene from Midsommar.
Yeah. Toby Chief, Abe Vigoda, rants about how none of his people will sacrifice themselves for the rest of the island.
Now that they have orange soda, they have something to live for, and therefore do not want to sacrifice themselves for each other.
But Joe has the courage. Joe is going to do something great.
Yep.
I'm my only hope for a hero.
Yep. Oh man, it's like a Bonnie Tyler song. Joe is taken up to the volcano, and as we said, the meandering path resembles the zigzag path that led to Joe's job.
Yep.
The chief is still matter-of-fact and blasé.
He's wearing Joe's wearing his tuxedo, which I think was fantastic. That's absolutely what I would wear to jump into a volcano.
Sure.
If you're going to
Except
meet
I
a
would
fire
wear-
guy,
What did you buy it for?
I would wear a full cape because it would look so cool on my way down, just fluttering in the breeze. But yeah.
I would dress like fire to confuse the volcano. Oh, it's just the regular fire. We don't need to hurt him.
You would wear one of
Guy Fieri?
Yeah, you'd wear one of Guy Fieri's shirts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Man, Guy Fieri versus the Onion Volcano.
So he's about to head up to the volcano, but Patricia says, "Hey, I love this guy."
Yeah.
And he says, "I love you too." What a time
But the
stinks.
time-
I gotta go. It's great. It's so simple. That's what I love. Like, it could go over the edge and get really sappy and gooey,
very-
but he does. He's just like, nope, the time
Nope,
stinks. I
I
gotta go.
love you too, but brain cloud, gotta jump in. And there's a great part where Patricia and Joe very quickly get married by Toby Chief.
But
Yeah.
he hesitates, and she's like, you can't
You
make
can't
a commitment for 30
You
seconds.
can't love and cherish me for 30 more seconds. It's like,
And he's like, okay, sure, yeah. It's so practical.
And Toby Chief says, "Do you want to get married?" Yeah. "Do you want to get married?" Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah, you're
yeah,
married.
that's it. And they kiss, and he's like, "I'm going back down."
Patricia insists that she's going to jump with him, and they both give nice little speeches.
Gotta be brave, gotta jump in.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
here's where, again, Joe says that feels like he's seen her before from the
Yep.
first moment they met.
Yep,
Yeah.
she says, we'll take the leap and we'll see.
We'll
That's
see what-
life.
Yep.
We'll take the leap and we'll see. That's life.
Yep.
And then he says, long time coming. It's been a long time coming on a crooked road. And that's where I was like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
And that's felt like I'd seen you before. And then she gives him the clenched hand like Dee Dee did earlier, only she opens it to hold his hand before they jump in.
There was someone I heard talk about this movie before we watched it, like this is ages ago, so I don't remember most of what they said. And I didn't remember anything that happened in the story. But they said that their interpretation of Meg Ryan is that the universe or God or whoever keeps giving Joe a chance over and over to find happiness, and that's why she's played by the same person. She is 3 different chances for him over the course of it to find something to live for. And in the end, yeah, she opens the hand because he's finally found it, and she finally accepts him, and he finally accepts her. But yeah.
So yeah, they're going to jump in and see what happens.
Yep, the
And say,
crooked road leads to the leap.
what are we hoping for here?
Hoping for a miracle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which happens.
Yes.
When they jump in, a plume of steam, instead of melting the flesh off their bones.
Okay, all right.
That's what would happen.
Again, you've bought into it this far.
I know,
You
but I'm
have
just
to-
saying,
they
like,
have to get out of this somehow, Brad.
well-
the movie would kind of be a downer if they
they
jumped
don't
in and
have
melted.
to- well, they would do it together, and
Another-
that's what's important.
I almost kind of expected for them to say, "We'll leap and see what happens." They would leap. We would see them falling in slow motion, and then it would cut to credits. And it would be up to you if you really wanted them to survive. You could imagine that ending. But instead, they decided, nope, they're just going to be shot out of there by a volcano. Fire.
Yep, and it throws them into the ocean, and of course, because Joe didn't jump in, the island sinks into the ocean, and once again, the loss of life is not acknowledged.
Now, here's the question.
No, they say something.
Yeah, they say something. They're not like, oh my God, an entire culture was
Yeah, no,
just
I
destroyed.
showed Cooper this movie about a month ago, and
Yeah.
he was very upset about Abe Vigoda.
Yeah,
Like, he
right,
was just
yeah,
like,
well,
who
what
wouldn't
about the
be?
chief? What about the Waponis, Mom? And I was like, maybe they're okay. Just-
Well, here's the question.
Just focus on what we're seeing.
Here's the question. Did the curse of the orange soda damn the, what are they called? The Wapoopies?
The
The
Waponi.
Waponis.
The Waponi. Did it damn the Waponis? What is it that one of the island's worshippers has to be the one, and them trying to get Joe to do it is on their part is such an underhanded move,
Well,
and
or-
not in the spirit of their religion,
Sure.
that it was a false sacrifice. So the god inside the volcano literally throws them back out.
Or, is the lack of courage just certain death.
Yeah.
Right, so-
that's a good point.
Is it possible that they deserved their deaths and never mind?
Well, when Joe was living without courage, he was leading a living death, right?
True, very true.
So it's not really until you embrace the
Well, that's
courage
another thing. Maybe
and
his
take
life,
the leap.
maybe his life is not a fitting sacrifice because he doesn't have one.
But he does, because the brain cloud's not real.
That's true, but he only realizes that after.
I don't like this volcano we've created that is judge, jury, and executioner.
Well,
it should just be executioner.
There's already an eldritch god living inside the volcano.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's not the volcano; it's the fire god,
right.
Brad.
It's a symbiotic relationship, presumably.
I wonder if we're going with the interpretation of the film that I've been going on so far, as this is like an
anti-capitalist screed.
As an anti-capitalist screed, what if the orange soda, as a product of Western capitalist marketing, has infected them with the greed of this thing and has caused them to not have any real bravery, which is what Joe, who is untethered to the life of capitalism, has given him, has.
Well, they
And
mention
therefore leads
about
to their
earlier.
destruction, as capitalism will inevitably lead to ours. Sorry.
Sure, no, not at all. They mentioned earlier how they have no sense of direction, and then there's this crooked path bit. It's been a long
Sure.
time coming on a crooked path, so they have no direction. They find no direction, whereas Joe has
Yeah.
followed the path, as crooked as it may be, to
Yeah.
decide that he needed to leap. They don't even have
Sure.
any path to follow.
Part of what I love about doing this show is most of the time, as we talk about movies, I love them more, and that has definitely been my experience. Hearing all your observations, why you love it, same with you.
Yeah.
This episode more than any other so far.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
The steamer trunk surface and Joe.
Because they're
That's a
watertight.
triumphant moment.
It is.
It is a triumphant moment. The way they pop up,
They pop
it's
up.
so wonderful.
Which means that which means you're Abe Vigoda or Nathan Lane sitting there and the water's like coming up and you just see the luggage just sort of like floating up as you I just like to imagine Abe Vigoda looking at this like, you don't see that every day.
You like to imagine Abe Vigoda and Nathan Lane slowly drowning.
I knew that's.
Is this like one of your top 10 fantasies?
Definitely.
Okay.
Normal,
Yeah.
it's normal.
It's
Yeah,
I
no.
think everyone's thought about Abe Vigoda drowning with Nathan Lane at least once in their life.
For me, it's Alan Alda and Peter Falk dying of CO2 poisoning.
What is your celebrity death fantasy, Spring?
When you're having a long, dark night of the soul, like who do you just like? Actually,
when
no.
you're having a good soak in the bath, you got a bath bomb, you got candles lit. What celebrities are you imagining dying?
My actual celebrity death fantasy. It's not even necessarily. It's not. Well, hold on. It's not necessarily a death, but it's Josh Gad getting hit by a smart car. No, it's funny. It's a funny image.
Okay. Anyway,
Let's bring it on home.
bring it on home.
You all right?
Yep.
As Joe is telling Patricia about the brain cloud.
The music is so good.
Oh yeah.
It gets so serious.
It
when
does,
She
yeah.
says brain cloud. And
Yeah.
everything changes.
We find out that Dr. Robert Stack is Patricia's father's doctor. She says he owns him. He has no other patients. It was all a setup. It was a long con so that he could get this mineral.
But don't you love that she criticizes him first for not getting a second opinion?
Exactly, yeah. You did,
Since you get a second opinion for something like a brain cloud?
which is fantastic because Robert Stack is even like, you might want to get a second
Second
opinion.
opinion,
And he's
yeah.
like- and he never does. And so you think it's a throwaway line because, yeah, a doctor would say that.
Sure,
Right.
But they were so convinced of Joe's just like hypochondria that
Sure.
And we
they
so
could
buy into the world at that point that even we as an audience
Right.
are like, no, I mean, he has the brain.
Well, he wanted an answer
Robert
and he was
Stack's-
given an answer, so that's it.
Yeah, Robert
Exactly.
Stack said it.
It's also
Yeah,
using
exactly.
it's also using our expected efficiency from movies where it's like, of course he's not going to get a second opinion. No one in a movie ever gets a second opinion, so it doesn't matter that he doesn't.
Right.
Right. I love also that she criticizes. You think they would have come up with something better than a
Something
brain cloud?
yeah.
Making
No, seriously,
Joe kind of
though.
question
Yeah.
this whole.
Yeah, but yeah, so in the end, this was all a capitalist ruse. This was
Yes.
all him, like, in the end, when you treat people like commodities, you own their life and death in your hand, and that's what they tried to do to Joe. But he got away.
So now Joe has his whole life ahead
Your
of him.
whole life is ahead of you.
And even though they're adrift on the ocean, they stay positive under the big, big moon. And Patricia wonders where they'll end up. And Joe says, possibly my favorite line, hell, away from the things of man, my love, away from the things of man.
She says it earlier on the.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
she's.
Oh, okay.
She says.
He asks her, "Why do you want a yacht?" And
She said, yeah. She says, where would you go? And she says, away from the things of man. And then he repeats it back to her.
away from the things of
At the
man,
end, yeah.
And
the
we're-
things that we spend money on, capitalism.
And we're told that they live happily ever after. And that's Joe versus the Volcano.
Yes.
Spring, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I love the levity at the end of it. Just how it all looked so bleak, and now they're on the luggage, and and he says, "I'm saved," and then he looks upset, and she says, "What is it now?" And he says, "Well, we're kind of,
We're still adrift in the
and
ocean.
She says, "It's always going to be something with you." I just thought that was such a lovely little encapsulation of their relationship going forward,
Yeah.
because we are told that they're going to live happily ever after, which I love.
I do.
I
It's-
do. I don't always, so many things are so negative or
Exactly.
up for interpretation. And while it is left open, they tell you that it's happily ever after.
Yes.
And, sometimes it's crave the simplicity and
Right.
perfection of that.
Sweet, simple movies are allowed to exist.
Absolutely.
And especially when you do something and it's not just this saccharine Hallmark movie type thing. This is an artistic vision. This is thought and care, and not always the most subtle, but always genuine and heartfelt.
Yes.
This movie chooses what it wants to be, and it commits whole hog to
Yes.
that concept. And that is, to my mind, one of the best things a movie can do, is to decide what it wants to be from the outset and just hammer that home.
Is there anything you'd like to add, Trotsky?
Sure. The last couple notes that I had was that there is a stage musical version of this.
Is
They
there?
adapted into a stage musical, but John Patrick Shanley was not involved, and therefore I do not care.
No.
But and the last thing is that
I can only imagine that the Joe versus the Volcano musical
Yeah.
was much like the Spider-Man musical. Julie Taymor wrote it,
Right.
U2 scored it, and it was a disaster.
I will say it never made it to Broadway. So
Can understand that.
John Patrick Shanley said he based the movie on an experience where he had been working in an office building for quite a long time. He says he hadn't seen the sun in what felt like years, and then he ended up on a boat somewhere. I don't remember how he said that happened, but he was on a boat trip or something with a friend, and he was out speeding along with the sun on his face, and he was looking out and he was like, "How did I get here?" And then he wrote the movie.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you
No,
have
that's
anything?
it. That's it. I was going to ramble on like usual.
Okay. Do you know what you want to talk about next week?
No idea. I've been toying with the idea of making you watch Batman and Robin so I can talk about what unsung masterpiece that is.
Sure, if that's how you want to live your life.
But no. The movie I meant to say what we're going to do turned out to be
Yeah, I know.
really messy. Yeah.
Think about it.
I will.
Spring, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This was a blast.
It really was.
If you ever have if you think of any other strange little artifacts that you love, feel free to let me know.
Okay, will do.
All
This
right.
is genuinely a fantastic film, and thank you for bringing it to
Yeah.
us.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.